Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Davo from Archon Esports, bringing you another 1v1 StarCraft 2 cast today. Today on our map, which is Dream Altar, in the top right-hand side we have TSLpolt, who is our blue Terran, and in the bottom right-hand side we have our red Zerg, who is GLSnute. Excellent. So a little bit of trivia about our players right now. GLSnute is from Norway. He is 21. He only became a full-time player late last year, which by the way was 2011. He owns a successful league on Team Liquid at the moment. The GL at the front of his name stands for Gamers League, yes, which is his team, and he is 61st in the Grandmasters League at the time of this game being played. Awesome! Good times. In the top right, as I said before, we do have TSLpolt. A little bit of information about him. He is from Korea. He is 23. He popularized the Banshee and Raven build, very much so. He is number 6 in Masters League at the time of this game being played, and the TSL at the beginning of his name stands for Team SCV Life, which is the team that he is part of at the moment. Awesome, so that is that. Opting for the common Terran strategy of the block-in against the Zerg player, just to negate any sort of run-by that could happen or anything like that. And we do have an expansion here from Snute as well, which is fairly standard play too. We also have drone scouting in either direction. He really wants to find out where his opponent is at this point in time. I'll just put the nameplates up so we can easily identify who is where and what is going on. I believe I've actually cast both of these players before, but I think this is coming up to nearly my 60th cast now. So it's not a surprise. I have cast a few games, not what I would call a lot, but enough to kind of get two people that I've cast playing together in one game. Hooray! Yay! We do have the spawning pool coming up right now, and the hatchery is actually going to be finished with no interruptions at all. But interestingly, Polt has actually gone for a command center as well. It's worthy to note that it is actually outside of his block in here, so if any aggression does come from Snute, which it won't because Snute doesn't have any Zerglings or anything like that, this command center will be left out here on its own while Marines sit and drink tea and coffee behind this barracks and supply depot fortification that they have going on between these two rocks here. And of course the barracks finishes and Polt instantly starts making Marine. No hesitation at all, and quite rightly too, as when things like this can happen it can be endlessly annoying where your SCVs are being punched at by the drone's little boxing gloves. We do have drone wars going on here, but it does look like this Marine will stop the drone wars and lead it into what I like to call the early game, because you've got drone wars and then you've got the early game. But of course I'm just simply talking rubbish. It does look like perhaps this Marine will be able to take the drone down. No, he will not, unfortunately. And we do have some Zerglings on the way now from Snute as well, which, if Polt's not careful, could end up, like I said, where this orbital command does get a little bit surrounded by Zerglings. While the Marines are sat behind here and the barracks over here is pretty secure, but Snute will not want to go near that with Zerglings, but he can just focus on destroying the orbital command that is here instead. Polt, of course, can shoot and then micro back. Snute perhaps deciding that maybe it isn't actually worth it. He might lose more than he gains from that attack, so he's not gonna be too aggressive, because one of the key mistakes quite a lot of people make is they're far too aggressive. They overextend their armies massively, then they lose it all and they can't re-macro in time. Of course, I myself am an amateur player, so I would know all about that. Don't worry about that at all. Awesome, cool. So we do have a spine crawler on the way here for Snute as well, perhaps thinking maybe there's going to be a little bit of an aggression on the way, and he is perhaps right, seeing as we do have two Hellions coming out of a reactor factory, and of course that can really at this stage in the game mean one thing, that we're going to see Hellions in the Zerg's mineral line swinging around and burning quite a lot of these drones. At this point in time it doesn't look like that could happen, because we do have a spine crawler here, which will go quite a long way to disrupt this Hellion attack. Okay, so it does look like, actually, yeah, the Hellions are going to be scouted by the Zergling here, but we'll quickly take the Zergling out. The Hellions will actually have to be quite careful, because they're going to take quite a large amount of damage if they're not careful. I'm not actually sure if they're going to be able to get into the Zerg base and cause as much damage as they would like. But however, if they were to come over here, they could roast quite a few Zerglings, but I'm not actually sure if Polt knows that those Zerglings are over there. And 2 more Hellions here joining the fray. Will we see a crazy run by with Hellions? It is possible. But we do have Snute now blocking him with Queens as well, that are on hold position. So it does actually look like he won't be able to get in there at all without receiving great damage to his Hellions, unfortunately. Those Zerglings being found out, it would really help if these Hellions had a blue flame upgrade. That would be awesome. And the Queen's actually retreating now and getting replaced by a fearsome pair of roaches, which of course are very resilient to the flame attack that the Hellion has, because roaches are armoured biological units, and the flames of the Hellion do not do so well against armoured units. They really need flesh to fry, as it were, instead of, well, you can't really fry armour plating, I suppose. We do have quite a lot of Zerglings leaving Snute's base here and going and having a look around the middle of the map. Excellent. And wow, that's a lot of Hellion down here too. We actually have Stimpack and Concussion Shells from the way from TSLpolt as well, which is a fairly good decision actually. The Concussion Shells you don't usually see so much in Terran versus Zerg, but I guess if your opponent goes roaches, it can't be too much of a bad decision. That is a lot of Hellion. You would maybe think it would be worthwhile getting the blue flame upgrade for them, but I suppose numbers can perhaps come over how much upgrades you actually need, and this is quite a big engagement right now from Polt. And at the same time, we do have quite a large attack from Snute going into Polt's base. Banelings coming in from Snute as well. Just running into the armour of the Hellions and the Marauders and not actually doing too much damage. It does look like Snute could be in a little bit of trouble here. He will need to pull these Zerglings back in order to actually do something about this. Hellions being careless towards the environment there and setting fire to a tree, and it does look like if they're not careful, if the Zerg player is not careful, Polt could actually focus this hatchery down, but it doesn't look like that will happen anymore, seeing as the drones are out with their little boxing gloves, and they are killing quite a lot of Marauders. These Hellions, though, on the other hand, don't look like they'll survive very long at all if they're not careful. They need to get one more shot off on that line of drones there, but unfortunately, all is left is just bits of Hellion. And these Zerglings are going to be running after these Marauders and trying to catch them, just to make sure no Terran units get away at all. And that does actually look like it will be happening, but no, Snute's forces do run into another Terran force, which will be rescuing these Marauders as well. We have quite a lot more on the way as well. Polt seems to be making stuff in the way of 3 Marauders, 2 Hellions, pretty much all the time. That seems to be his mix, his composition, which is quite nice. You've got the Marauders to combat the Roaches, and you've got your Hellions to combat the Zerglings, and drones for that matter. So it's quite a nice composition to be going, really. It's not a terrible idea at all. We have more barracks going down as well, so it does look like Polt will be going down a kind of a biological way of playing at the moment. And of course, Marauders are armoured, and as well, Hellions are armoured, so they do pretty well defensively against our friend the Baneling, which of course likes to run into things and explode. Generally speaking, they too are less effective against armoured, the Baneling. We have masses of stuff coming from Polt right now as well, but that's quite a lot of Baneling there. Maybe it could have helped to split those Marauders a little bit, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because of how armoured the Marauders actually are. It would really help if these Hellions had blue flame upgrade perhaps, but I mean maybe that just doesn't suit the way that the build is rolling for Snute at the moment. These Queens transfusing each other desperately, trying to... Oh, I've lost connection to Battle.net. Oh dear. Good thing I'm not playing. These queens transfusing each other, desperately trying to stay alive. And it looks like they should actually be able to do it. These Zerglings here absolutely getting roasted away by the Hellions. Goodbye, Zerglings. Poor little buggers. Now we do have quite a lot of spine crawlers going down as well. Snute realising that this is actually a flashpoint for his Zerg army. He does need to protect this a little bit better than he has been, so he's putting down 3 spine crawlers and replacing first from his base and sticking it there instead. In the meantime, we do have quite a lot of Zerglings coming up the map. We have the number 2 melee weapons upgrade for the Zerg army at the moment, which will of course make these Zerglings very, very effective indeed. Snute actually catching quite a lot of Polt's forces out of position here as well. It would be good to see if these Zerglings can get a few SCV kills before running off, but they cannot. And then Polt's army just carries on killing the rocks with his marines and tanks combination. He is also getting deploy for his tanks as well, which is really, really good against roaches especially. Tanks do have a bonus against armoured, I believe, when they're deployed, and I think maybe at all time. I'm not actually sure of that one, someone will have to correct me. Really, really sorry. But I mean, this amount of Zerglings here could be quite dangerous towards this force, especially if these tanks aren't deployed when these banelings come running towards these marines. So that could be pretty interesting to see what happens actually next. We've got quite a lot of banelings just finished morphing right about now as well, and infestation pit on the way. Oh, luckily Polt just finishing his... Oh dear, that wasn't the most successful attack. Polt just luckily finishing his supply depot there right before the baneling attack actually happened. So I'm not particularly sure that was the greatest use of banelings possible. I think they took out an SCV, but unfortunately they didn't take out very much else. The Zerg armor number 2 is also coming up as well for Snute right about now, as well as Burrow. He has an infestation pit finished as well, and he is also getting a hive. Excellent, yeah! Which means that we might see really, really cool units such as Ultralisks and Broodlords, which I do hope, or the Adrenal, what is it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Adrenal Glands for the Zerglings, which increases their attack speed by quite a lot and really, really makes them quite deadly. Just imagine that acid from Alien, where it burns through the ship. Basically, my analogy is this: Zerglings can burn through an enemy base with that upgrade. Ah, yeah. Okay, so we do have a big move out coming here from Polt at the moment. A big move out from Polt. Really big, actually. Snute might want to be a little careful of what's going down here with some really, really nice marine splitting. It does look like Polt could actually do quite nicely here. Quite a lot of banelings getting blown up by the siege tanks right there, and more marines being siphoned in from Polt as well. And he is doing that common Terran tactic where you stagger your tanks and move them forward 1 by 1, or in this case 2 by 2, and more on the way here from Snute as well. Ouch, that was quite a nice pincer attack there as well, coming around the side from Snute. But it does look like this Terran army is going to be really, really annoying for Snute to deal with right about now. We do have quite a lot of Zerglings and Roaches up here next to a watchtower, not doing a whole lot. Maybe they will get pulled back in a minute. It really depends how confident Snute is against this attack. Whoa, crikey. That queen, no other queen was around to transfuse her, so she did actually die in a pretty timely fashion. These marines here are just machine gunning absolutely everything. They're a bit like Al Pacino at the end of Scarface, and boom, they all die. Unfortunately, there aren't banelings in Scarface. Meanwhile, there are quite a lot more marines and tanks already here for Polt, carrying on what can only be called a death push from him. This is quite a lot of aggressive movements here from Polt, and it actually does look like it could be breaking the surface of this Zerg base. We also have 3 weapons on the way for our Terran player as well. And he is making 13 Marines and 3 tanks at a time, really dedicating to this new composition that he has decided to go. It does look like this hatchery will go down for Snute, and that will force him onto a 3 base layout, so it will mean that he is even with his Terran opponent. And generally speaking, Zergs do want to be a little bit further ahead, usually, in the amount of expansions they have. These Marines here will have to split quite nicely, and there was the split, ensuring that the banelings can only do minimum damage, while these Marines had their epic travels around this little bit here. The siege tanks and other Marines were repositioning also. We have a little bit of an aggressive move up here from Snute as well, who is blowing up quite a lot of his opponent's SCVs at the moment. Both players' incomes is acceptable, reasonable. Wow, that is a lot of tanks from Polt. Like, a lot of tanks from Polt. I think this might be a game-winning amount of tanks. I'm not entirely sure, though. I mean, there are a lot of tanks, but there aren't a lot of... Oh, we do have Broodlords on the way from Snute right now as well, and of course their long-range attack. Their long-range attack could be really useful. Really useful in situations like this. Broodlords are especially good against siege tank and marine combinations, because the broodlings kind of hold the marines back like a little barrier, and of course they can do so much damage to the siege tanks because they can't shoot up, unfortunately for them. Meanwhile, the drama is still carrying on over in the top side of the map. But it doesn't look like the drama will be carrying on for much longer at this rate, as it does look like perhaps Snute might be losing his other base fairly soon. There are still quite a lot of tanks here for Polt, but he's biding his time, waiting to see what happens. Of course, trying to make the siege tanks blow each other up, and there's Snute GGing. Ooh, quite frankly, again, thanks to what I can only presume is a drop here in his 4th base, courtesy of Polt. That pressure must have been very hard for him to counter, and very hard for him to deal with throughout the entire game. It was a pretty good game all in all. Did we see a Broodlord on the field? Yes, there are 2 Broodlords somewhere. There's one, and there's one. Yay! Excellent. And there are the little broodlings that were just getting ready to fire and go into that marauder's throat. Excellent. Alright guys, well thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely day and enjoy playing StarCraft. I'll see you next time. Cheers. Goodbye.